Hello everybody, welcome to this webinar. My name is Edoardo Binda Zane. I'm a leadership and communication trainer and coach based in Berlin, working across Europe. And of course, I'm the host of today's webinar. Now, for those of you who don't know me, who haven't been following me around, I'm going to give you a brief introduction about who I am, what I do, why I'm doing this, and where I come from. As I said, I'm a leadership trainer and communication consultant, but that's not originally where I come from. I actually come from consulting. I did the usual path, if you want, of business school and straight into consulting. And I had the chance, or the luck, should I say, to be able to work directly at very high level environments. I was working consulting for the European Commission, and I had the chance of working with people in very high places, extremely high level profiles, and that allowed me to see the good sides of it and the bad sides of it. Like whatever you don't see from the outside world, but you only see in the trenches. Specifically, I remember that working with these extremely high profiles, people with unimaginable QI, was brilliant because you could see how much knowledge you could gain from them in terms of tools, structures, techniques, processes. You could see how much there was to be learned from them at every step. However, the bad side of it is that after working in that environment for a while, despite the level and the quality of work, you could tell there was a complete lack or widespread lack, because it wasn't everybody, of communication skills, of interaction skills, of empathy skills, if you wish. And you could see that when it came to their role in leadership. As I became a leader of projects myself, and I was someone particularly interested for my personal perspective on self-development, communication, emotional intelligence, I saw the difference between my styles of leadership and theirs. And it's not just me saying that. I remember the feedback that I used to get from clients and from team members. And it is true that emotional intelligence is something that we've always needed. Let's be honest, it's nothing new. It's been around for decades. But if we're honest about it, we have never needed it as much as we did now. And it's one of maybe the good sides of this mess that we're living in, this COVID pandemic that is taking us all by surprise still. One of the issues with emotional intelligence was that it was always put in second place, especially when it came to leadership. We were never judged by how emotionally intelligent we were. We were judged in terms of what numbers we could achieve, what results we could get to. And as such, emotional intelligence has always been something interesting, nice, but an add-on to the real work that needed to be done. And as I said, this COVID pandemic had showed us how different this was from reality. We've seen how much of an impact psychological safety, empathy, human connection have on the world of work. And my hope is that once all of this is over and we can get back to a sort of new normal, all of these impacts will not be forgotten. We will be able to still see and keep alive this relevance of being empathetic, leading with emotional intelligence, and leading by trust. And this goes without saying, but one of the issues that appeared also through this pandemic was how misguided our perception, or the general perception, of emotional intelligence was. Remember, you're not judged on how emotionally intelligent you are, you're judged on the numbers that you can achieve. As such, not without any particular evidence for emotional intelligence and results, we've never doubled down on it, we've never focused on it. But here is the thing. It's not that those numbers don't exist. They do. And I want to share something with you, which is some of those numbers. And I remember being shocked the first moment I saw them because I couldn't believe this was not common knowledge. And my hope is that you're going to be as shocked as I was. Specifically, we're looking at one of the main consequences of emotional intelligence in leadership. We're looking at trust. Trust is what happens in a company, in a team, once a few specific triggers are switched on, and a team and a leader can build a deeper relationship. Now, what I'm going to show you is the results of a 10-year-long study that looked at the difference between high trust companies and low trust companies. It's a study by Paul J. Zak. I suggest you look it up if you want. If you're ready, here they are. A company with a higher level of trust and underlying level of higher emotional intelligence in leadership shows 106% more energy at work with people. Double the energy you want to put on. 1.5 times the amount of work people can do. Meaning that if 2 people could do 2 projects, now 2 people can do 3 projects. And then connected, of course, less chances of burnout and less sick days because you're creating a healthy and enabling environment just by developing one area of emotional intelligence. Now, take a look at these numbers. Take a look at what they mean for the financial status of a company and tell me this is not a tangible effect of emotional intelligence and a tangible effect of what it means for leaders. Maybe, how about you tell me something about why you're here and why this is important for you? If you're watching on YouTube, you can take a look at the comments directly and type in a question, type in whatever you want to discuss with me personally. I'm going to go through what I read as soon as I read it or whenever there is a chance during the webinar. Back to emotional intelligence. Where we are now is the fact that we've touched by hand that it's becoming more and more relevant. And it's more relevant for the way people work and more relevant for the results we can achieve. And we have the numbers to show that. Now we need to develop it. We need to get down and start working on developing it. And here we go into a major issue with emotional intelligence. The fact that being nothing new, again, it's been around for decades. Being nothing new, though, it's something that's become more pop culture than anything else. And as a result, whenever you look for emotional intelligence, way to develop it, what you find is something fairly simple, fairly easy to grasp, little bite-sized chunks on empathy, on giving feedback, on mindfulness, on conflict resolution, which are all incredibly important areas of emotional intelligence. But you kind of still miss the bigger picture. Also because online you just want to present something that is digestible in very small chunks. However, if you're serious about developing, you want something more organic. And if you want to look into the whole process, this whole universe, and the implications for leadership, and especially you want the practical aspect, you run into a second problem, which is the fact that most of this knowledge is academic, scientific, research focused. And in order to get to the bottom of what all of that means in practice, you need to invest a huge amount of time. Plus, you need to invest time in something that is often theoretical and not practically applicable. One example for all of them. Emotional Intelligence, the book by Goleman. Brilliant book, groundbreaking, generational. It just started a wave that we still feel today. It's something that is a staple of modern management and leadership. And I have the utmost respect for it, but at the same time, it is unreadable. Again, full respect for the book, the research, and the writing, but the way it is presented, the concepts, are extremely difficult to grasp, especially if you want to apply them in practice. what I found for myself when I went through the book was going through it, having a look at it, and then finding myself having to invest time to figure out how all of that was going to be built into my reality. And this is why I've decided to come up with this course. Emotional Intelligence for Leaders is a course that I have developed throughout last year, which follows a few specific ideas. First of all, I'm going to present you a few snippets of it today, a few applications that you can use right off the bat, whether you're interested in the course or not. But in general, also relevant for the approach of this webinar, I wanted to build something that respected all the universe of emotional intelligence and leadership. So first of all, everything you are going to hear today and that you hear in the course is rooted in science. I've done the research, I've put every single reference for every single sentence that I put forward. And I've done it because otherwise, if I don't do this, I have no guarantee for you to tell you this is something that works. It could have been just a story that I've made up in my head. It would be nice of you to hear, but is it any use for you? Unless it's referenced and unless it's rooted in science, it isn't. I've rooted everything specifically to give you this guarantee. Second, I wanted this course to be practical and applicable. So yeah, I kept the scientific infrastructure, but I've limited the theoretical explanation. I've given you that, but I'm not interested in telling you what you need to do. I'm interested in telling you how you need to do it. So for every major area of the course, I've broken it down into what you need to do, why you need to do it, and especially how. I'm giving you templates, I'm giving you tools, I'm giving you strategies that will make the whole thing practical and applicable. And one of the things that really made me happy about it was the immediate feedback as soon as it was released by one of my contacts, telling me that it was astonishing by how practical this course was. It's something that makes me really happy to hear because it means that I've nailed exactly what I wanted to give you. And especially for today, if you're going to listen through this whole webinar, I'm going to offer you a 15% discount should you be interested in getting the course afterwards. So you might want to stick around for that. Right. That was it for the introduction. How about we get to the nitty and gritty of it? And let's start with the one thing that we still have not gotten around to answer. What is emotional intelligence? Often, we think of emotional intelligence in terms of empathy, in terms of how we relate to others, how we embrace the way they are, and how we connect with people at an emotional level, which is true, but it's a part of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, the most direct and tangible definition that I found is our ability to move our emotional life from a passive role, unconscious role, to an active, conscious role. Here is what I mean. Most of the time, we just accept the influence that our emotions have on us. If we are feeling happy, we're happy, and we shape our perception of the world based on our happiness. Same thing, especially relevant in leadership when we are experiencing something negative. If something is going on with us, we become irritable, sometimes we may have trouble focusing. If it's something really awful that happened, or like we're particularly angry, resentful, or disappointed, it becomes difficult to judge right. It becomes difficult to focus right. And despite everything we do, we cannot manage to snap out of it. And being emotionally intelligent means being able to choose whether we want to invest time in processing what this emotion is and what it does to us, or if instead we want to snap out of it and redirect our energy to wherever we need to, work, personal connections, you name it. And you can see the difference. Especially in leadership, you don't want to be the kind of guy that arrives into an office or virtually communicates right now and has his or her team think, okay, leader is in this bad situational state. Let's not engage. Let's not interact. Let's not communicate. Let's wait until things are better and wait for a better moment to talk. You know you cannot have this as one of your leadership traits. And being emotionally intelligent gives you the ability to do that. And it's a great skill to have. And as any skill, it's something that needs to be built based on a specific set of tools, areas of work, and exercises. And this also brings us to the next question, which is, how do you develop emotional intelligence? Developing it is a process, first of all, like playing the piano, and getting to the end game, which is how we understand emotional intelligence in general, being empathetic, being constructive, solving conflicts in a constructive and positive way, influencing other people's emotional state. Getting to that point is the end of a process that is built on 4 areas. These 4 areas are self-awareness, influencing and recognizing your own emotional state, reading other people's emotions, and in the end, interacting at an emotional level. And each one of these steps is not independent. They are all, as I said, part of a process. If you want to get to the end, you need to start from the beginning. And I'm going to go through all these 4 phases in the rest of this webinar. So I'm going to give you some ideas and tools on how to do it. But the best way to go about it, the best way to go about anything is knowing where you're starting from. So here is my first free tool for you. I'm going to share with you this link. This link is a self-assessment that you can find directly on my website. And by doing this self-assessment, which is, again, all science-based, all rooted in science, you can see all the references that I have used at the bottom of the page. Doing the self-assessment will tell you a few key elements of your emotional intelligence level. First of all, it will tell you what your general level is. By the way, there is no right or wrong here. It's not a judgment. If you have a low score, it's okay. If you have a high score, it's okay. And it's just something that is meant to give you some guidance on where you need to work on and how you need to work on it. Because besides giving you an overall level of your emotional intelligence starting point, it will also break down how you score, if you want to put it this way, in each one of these 4 areas. So it will tell you how good you already are in self-awareness, in influencing your own emotions, in reading others, and in interacting emotionally with others. Now, again, if you have any questions about this, feel free to write in the comments. I'll take questions as I go along. One thing that, should you take the test, you should take into account is, however, this process idea. If for any reason you find yourself extremely good at interacting at an emotional level, but poor in the previous 3 areas, please do not assume that you're done, that your job is done. Each area builds on the previous ones, and therefore it is essential that you start by developing the first aspect, and then the second one, and then the third, and then only at the end get to the 4th area. And you will see these results the more you'll go along with the course. Now, let's get started with the first area. I'm going to go through each one of them quite in depth, but also quite quickly, because time is of the essence. Number 1, self-awareness. What does this mean? It means being able to recognize and understand in detail what you're feeling and why. And let's be clear about it. If this is weird because you already know if you're feeling happy or if you're feeling sad, I get where you're coming from. You know how you're feeling already. And that's part of being a human being, I guess. But let me ask you this question. In your daily life, how often do you willingly go beyond feeling happy, sad, energetic, positive, negative? If you're feeling down, for example, can you tell the difference between being pensive, being worried, being disappointed, being reprehensive? Those are all very different shades of a negative thought, but they all have very different meaning. Or another, maybe one of my favorite examples. Think of the difference between shame and guilt. They feel very different, but they're two very different emotions. Guilt means I'm feeling bad because of something that I have done. Shame feels similar, but a sentence to describe it would be, I don't feel good about who I am as a person. And despite the two of them feeling similar, you can see how different they are. So before you want to influence others, before you want to interact with others at an emotional level, you need to be able to influence your own emotional state. And in order to be able to influence your own emotional state, you need to know what you're dealing with. I love cars, but I have absolutely no idea of how to fix an engine. So I love driving. Of course, I love going around with the car, but if you ask me to pop open the trunk, I cannot even recognize the pieces. So if I want to fix it, I need to first know what a piston is, what a carburetor is, and how they look like. This is what this area is about. This is where you start. Moving on to this, influencing your own emotions. So if beforehand we looked at an engine and learned how to recognize the parts, now we're learning how to fix them. And this is particularly relevant when you as the leader, you are taken over by some negative emotion. Again, first of all, you cannot have that as one of your leadership traits. Second, it will influence your whole team and it will not create the enabling environment that will allow you to perform better, as we've seen before. And third, unless you know the process of how to get out of it, you will still not be able to react in a way that is good and appropriate for your team. So to go through the step, there are two main areas or two sub-steps that you need to focus on. The first one is recognizing, well, the previous area was recognizing what's going on with you. The second aspect, the first sub-step of this area is being able to snap out of a negative cycle. And the third and second subset of this one is not being sucked back in by the negativity of that emotion. Now, I'm going to go through both these steps fairly quickly. In order to snap out of a negative place, you have two weapons at your disposal. The first one is control on your happiness levels. We often assume that how happy we are depends on how we are as a person, our general mood and general perspective, and our external conditions. This is true, but those are not the only two drivers. There is a third driver of happiness, and it accounts for 40% of the total level. This factor is you, what you do and how you think about life and how able you are to hack your happiness levels. In the course, I'm going to share with you a couple of quick triggers that will help you tap in directly into that 40%. And if you look at the whole perspective, 40% is not a minor amount. It's quite a major percentage that can make a difference between you feeling absolutely negative and you willing to react, willing to do something else. That is the first main step. And the second trigger to get out of a negative place has to do with something that you might not be expecting, which is your own sense of humor. Now, humor and my work, I love this topic. I love going into it because there is something extremely deep and extremely powerful about it if used correctly. What you need to know about humor is that your own sense of humor is indeed unique, and there is nothing right or wrong about this. But the uniqueness can be traced down to 4 main styles of humor: 2 negative, 2 positive, 2 related to you, 2 related to others. And the way your humor is combined will tell you how good your sense of humor is already in helping you snap out of it. And if it isn't, I'm sharing with you in the course a few ideas and a few tools on how to hack your sense of humor to make your situation better. So this was step 1 in this area, influencing your own emotions. If you recognize area number 1, that you've been dragged down by something negative, a negative emotional state, in this phase, once you recognize it, you can first of all do something about it. And you can do something via happiness, you have control on 40% of it, and humor, your own sense of humor, if you know how to hack it. That first step will help you get out of it. However, it's not the only aspect of it, because a negative feeling can be so powerful that it will drag you back in if you don't know how to redirect your energy elsewhere. And the second step of this area that I'm talking about, it has to do exactly with how you redirect your energy, how you focus and concentrate on specific types of tasks that are designed to distract you from the focus on this negativity and redirect your energy elsewhere. In the course, I share a few hacks about it, and the general idea is that if you manage to go through step 1 well and invest anywhere between 10 and 30 minutes focusing on something else, you're done. You're out of it, and you've successfully influenced your emotional state from a negative, passive one to a positive, constructive one. And again, this is about having the choice of what to do whenever you feel that your emotional life is having an impact on how you lead others, how you communicate with others, the perceptions that others have of your leadership style. If you have the choice to do that, and if you have the ability to influence your own emotional state, then this will cascade down to your team, and it will help others interact at a deeper level with you. And that is one of the foundations of trust. And trust is one of the main drivers of performance and of good behaviors in teams, as we've seen beforehand. Does this make sense so far? Any questions? Feel free to write again. I don't see anyone asking. I take that everything is clear. And let me go on with the other areas. If for anything, just feel free to write down. I'm keeping an eye on the comments and keeping an eye on whatever is not clear of what I've said so far. Right. Brief summary. We've seen that emotional intelligence has 4 main steps. It is a process, and to develop it, especially in leadership, you need to go down the 4 of them. We've gone through the first 2, recognizing your own emotions in detail and influencing your own emotional state. And now we're getting to the interesting part, because it has to do with how you relate to others and how you relate to your team. Let's face it, this is where we consider emotional intelligence to be mostly relevant, and this is always what we look at. But anytime I hear someone talking about this and I see that they haven't done the work beforehand, I know that they're going to fall short and they're going to be disappointed. And that is why I wanted to go through the first 2 areas beforehand. Enough intro. We're talking about how to read others. Reading others is a fundamental aspect of leadership in general. But when it comes to being an emotionally intelligent leader, it's important that you are aware of what dynamics are unfolding around you, what any conflicts, any tensions that you might see in your team. So it is fundamental that you recognize and observe and are aware of these dynamics, and especially that you have the tools to do that. And for this, you can count on two main tools. The good news is that you already have one of them if you've gone through the process, which is the ability to recognize your own emotional state and being able to do it in detail. That alone has been shown to improve your ability to understand what someone else is going through, what he or she is feeling. And being able to do that will immediately enrich your perspective, give you more information on how to base your behavior and interaction with the person, and evaluate whether you need to do something about it or not. And the second tool you have at your disposal is body language. Body language has a lot of traction around the internet, and quite rightly so. In the course, I give you a brief primer of what for me, I've been involved in this for a few years, what for me are the most immediate, important, and strongest signals when looking at a person, either one-to-one or observing interactions from the outside. Briefly put, I like to observe, to frame body language in four main areas: shape, intonation, rhythm, and coherence. Shape simply means the shape of someone's body, the posture, the orientation, where they're leaning to, open or closed, etc. There are a lot more details in the course, but this will suffice for now. That will give you a lot of information already of where the person's attention is, how focused they are on you versus on something else. Connected to that, look at the intonation. By intonation, I mean their tone of voice when they're speaking. Is it higher than normal? Is it lower than normal? Does it tremble as you go along? Is it steady and constant? Is it melodious in a way? All of those elements of how someone speaks can tell you a lot about what the person is going through at an emotional level at any point. Connected to it, rhythm. And by rhythm, I mean the rhythm of the conversation or the rhythm of breathing. And I'm giving you a few key examples in the course on what you need to be on the lookout for. And the fourth one, coherence. Coherence is by far the most telling element of observing body language. Coherence means looking at whether someone's shape, intonation, and rhythm are all giving you the same signal or not. Because, of course, you need to be extremely proficient in all the details of the other three areas, and I'm giving you everything you need to know in the course. But if you're able to see that one area is giving you a sign that the other two are not, for example, you may be able to understand that the person is lying or the person wants to portray something else, and you are going to be able to do something about it. And once you have this, you're going to be able to inform your behavior based on this additional level of information, and then get to the final end game, which is working with others, influencing others, and putting all your emotional intelligence skills for leadership in practice. To give you a parallel about where we are right now, what we've seen that in the beginning, you need to understand and recognize better what you're feeling and why. And then, only then, you're going to be able to influence it. Here, you're doing exactly the same thing. Before you influence others or you try to steer them away from negativity, you need to understand what's going on. And this is exactly what you've done in this block. And only then, you can step into number 4, the fourth area of emotional intelligence, which is interacting at an emotional level. This is what most people and most leaders want to get to. Whenever I give workshops about it, whenever I give coaching about it, this is the area where they want to rush to. And I understand why. I understand the appeal of it, the drive, if you want, maybe the feeling that you get out of being able to do that, the feeling like you're developing yourself as a human being and as a leader, and you're growing professionally. I get the appeal of it. However, I need to be honest with the fact that it is a process, and as a process, you need to go through the other 3 steps. Assuming that you've done that, here is where you get to. First of all, there are 2 aspects of interacting with others. One of them is your day-to-day interaction. So what do you do on a day-to-day basis in order to build trust, build respect, build motivation, build positivity, create little by little this positive, enabling environment that will give you all the results that you want. They will give you resilience, they will give you performance, and they will give you the ability to have control on it. All of this, of course, in a positive and ethical way. In this sense, I'm sharing with you a few tools, and specifically in the course, I'm sharing you 7 triggers that you want to be on the lookout and that you can implement every day in your daily interactions with your team. Nothing big, nothing major, nothing strong, but something that, if done every day, will skyrocket your ability to interact with others and drive your team. So this is your baseline. And secondly, the second aspect of this area has to do with what you need to do when you're called as a leader to intervene more heavily. And here we want to look at 2 main areas. The first one is when you notice that someone in your team is in a negative emotional state and is influencing others. The other one has to do with solving a conflict. Now, here is something I don't usually talk about in the free webinars, but I want to give it to you anyways. It's a concept that is extremely powerful. This concept is called emotional contagion. And it's a law that you have witnessed yourself. And once you have knowledge of it, you can explain a lot of dynamics in a team. Meaning that in any team, at any moment, or in any group, if for that matter, the general mood always flows towards the most emotionally charged person. This means that if you are at a bar with a bunch of friends having a great time and someone arrives in a foul mood, you will feel all the mood of the group converging downwards, getting nearer to the negativity of this person. Same thing for a positive effect. So if someone arrives in an extremely positive mood while everyone else is down, that person will be able to uplift everyone else. And by now, I hope you can see why this is relevant in leadership and why it's relevant when you need to lead others. If someone is in a negative state heavily and doesn't have the tools or the knowledge to react to it, you need to intervene. And you need to know what to do exactly to help this person snap out of it. Otherwise, this person will be able to bring everyone down in the team and sink productivity, sink the environment that you've built, and sink team unity. And it's not their fault, but being emotionally intelligent means having an active role in how you influence your own emotion. If a person hasn't gone through a training, you cannot expect them to be able to do that. So as a leader, you need to know how to intervene and how to behave. And in my course, I'm giving you exactly a step-by-step procedure on what to do, at what point, and based on what scientific concepts. Of course, everything based in practice. And the second area you want to be aware of when you need to intervene more heavily has to do with conflicts. Whenever you are in a heated conflict, either you're personally involved or you see it unfolding in front of you, there is a danger that emotions spin out of control. And that negativity has a massive impact on a team. Hopefully something that doesn't happen too often, but something that definitely happened to me in my leadership position and that I've seen happening around. And a leader like yourself, knowing what to do and how to do it, can make a world of a difference in the positivity of a team, in the drive of a team. And in my course, I'm sharing with you one of my favorite techniques. It's something that I've partially learned, partially developed, partially researched, and I have combined everything into this. I think it's something that makes wonders. It's something that brings every single aspect of the training into a single point and enables you to steer away from the heated part of the conflict, the emotion, and use that energy towards a constructive resolution. It's something dramatically simple once you know how to use it. I've used it personally, providing examples in the course, and I can tell you from my own personal experience and feedback that I've received that this is absolute gold. Any questions so far? I'm going to give you a quick wrap up of what we've discussed so far. And if you have any questions, write them down now and I will be answering them in the next few minutes. So we've seen what emotional intelligence means and why it is relevant for leaders. It's relevant for leaders because once you know how to deal with your own emotions and how to influence your emotional state, you can shift from a passive perspective, a passive point of view, towards a more active one. You can take an active role in how you feel and how much of an influence your emotions, especially your negative ones, have on your behavior. You don't want to be the guy or the woman, that enters an office and has his or her team immediately evaluate your emotional state. You cannot do that, and you cannot have your emotional state be the driver of how much your team wants to interact with you. That's a recipe for disaster. And knowing how to influence your emotional state is the subject of the first two main areas. We've seen that area number one is recognizing what emotion you're dealing with exactly. Before you fiddle with something, you need to know what you're dealing with. The second part has to do with being able to do something about it. If you see that your negativity is bringing you down and is extending to your team, you need to do something. And there is a process in 2 steps in order to get out of it and redirect your energy where you need it to be. So on a task or on a person, but having the choice of doing that. Once you're stable in that, once you've learned how to do it and you can develop, you can move on to the third area, which is reading others, understanding other people's emotional state. The end game of being an emotionally intelligent leader is being able to enlarge the quantity of information that you exchange with your team. Therefore, what you want to do is being able to interact with them as well. Before doing that though, you need to understand what's going on. You need to understand what's going on in a meeting between 2 people or between you and another person. And having done the work in the first area and using some specific body language reading key points that I'm sharing with you in the course will get you there. It's something that is fairly simple, but once you address it correctly, will skyrocket the level of information you can receive from your team. And once you got to that point, only then you can start interacting at an emotional level, driving others. making sure that you build an enabling environment, a psychologically safe environment, a trust-based environment that will get you higher productivity, better results, higher resilience of your team. All of those are areas that you want to get into. But before doing that, you need to know what emotions you're dealing with the team and how to do it. And how to do it is the 7 triggers that I share with you in my course. And the last aspect of this is being able to intervene when the situation is requiring you to. You need to recognize it first and then know what to do. And knowing what to do relates to 2 main points. First of all, knowing what to do when someone is in such a negative mode, or in a negative mode for an extended period of time, that he or she can create a disruption in the workflow of the team, in the performance, in the resilience, and in the unity. You don't want to get there, and you need to know what to do. And secondly, you need to know how to handle a blow, a conflict, how to handle both the emotional level and how to take the energy that comes from it and redirect it elsewhere towards a more constructive and positive result. These are the 4 main areas of emotional intelligence. And again, everything you heard in this webinar is rooted in science. Everything the whole perspective of this, though, is not to give you a scientific list of references. You can have them on my website, they're already there, but to give you the practical point of view, to give you templates, to give you tools, to give you structures that you can rely on and start using from day 1. To do that, start with the self-assessment. You have your link in the comments. I'm going to share it again, just in case. Start with the self-assessment and take a look at what your starting level is. Again, no right or wrong answer, but it's a good idea to figure out where you're starting from. And secondly, if you want, you can rely to my course. I'm going to share with you the homepage as well as I promised, a code that will give you 15% off the course. This course is completely self-paced, online. It's about 3 hours divided in 40 videos and 8 modules, and it will go through each one of these steps with written notes as well in detail and help you or enable you to apply all of these concepts little by little as you progress in your leadership position. Here is the homepage of the course, and here is a code that will give you a 15% discount. If I don't see any other questions or any questions for today, I assume that everything is clear. I do hope that you've enjoyed this webinar. I do hope that despite some technical difficulties in the beginning, I've been able to give you something that you can rely on, and at least something that will make you curious about developing a bit more of this world. If you want to follow me, feel free to take a look at my website. I have a podcast going out and I run webinars regularly. If you don't have any questions, I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're doing well, and thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate the trust that you've given me today. Thank you. Stay safe. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.